Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of the Spiritual Crash. Today, we're in for a treat. We are joined by the lovely Kenzie. She is the owner of My Mind Grove, and she talks about her experiences. She'll be talking about how she started with the Mind Grove, and she'll also be talking about shamanic stuff. So, there's shamanic practices, shamanic healing, and she's going to be talking about her experiences and how you can do it at home. So, thank you so much for joining me, Kenzie.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm super excited to be here. Currently, I'm working as a certified somatic coach, and my goal is to share anxiety relief techniques to help people cope with anxiety and overwhelm. And it all started because I have my own, struggle with anxiety. I still have my anxious moments, but these tools have been so incredibly helpful for me. And so that's why I'm passionate about sharing them with everyone so that they can help themselves when they feel overwhelmed. So I'm excited to be here.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. So you explained a little bit about who you are and what you're doing, but can we go into a bit more detail, like where you're from and when did you
Yeah.
notice that you needed to change how you was feeling inside? So just tell us a bit about where it all
Yeah.
resonated from.
Absolutely. So I struggled very much with anxiety as a kid, and that's also a part of, why I got into this work. But I think initially for me, I grew up in Florida, and I moved to Washington, D.C. to get my master's degree in film and media production. And so while I was there, I met so many amazing people. And I don't know if it was just because it was like, everyone was, working at their job or just everyone was so busy around me. But I noticed that a lot of my peers were like extremely, burnt out and struggling and stressed out. And, we're all chronically online and we're living, we're feeling disconnected from ourselves, from our body, and we're more anxious. And so I always knew that I, wanted to get into media and use media as a tool to help people with their mental health. And so um, I just decided that, while I was up there, I was gonna, take a chance on myself and start this business and, have this goal of helping people and sharing these tools that have helped me so much. And when I was younger, I went through this really rough period of time where I went to a private Catholic elementary school and then I switched over to a public middle school. And so that transitional period was really rough for me. And I don't know if it was, you know, just the stress of meeting new people or, just the changes, but I became so anxious before school that I would actually, throw up before school, and that's the way that my anxiety manifested itself. And I know you just had Holly on, and
Yeah.
so we have a similar story, and hers is a little bit different than mine. I don't get anxious when people get sick around me. My anxiety stemmed more from, oh my gosh, like if I get so anxious that I throw up in front of other people, they're gonna think I'm weird or they're gonna reject me or they're gonna be like, oh, that girl is crazy. And so a lot of my anxiety stemmed around social acceptance. And so from that point on, I had it's a rough age to experience such severe, anxiety. And I found a therapist. I went into talk therapy and I found meditation, which is such an amazing tool. Both of those, talk therapy and meditation are so amazing. But for me, I found that when I was already, really anxious, if I tried to just like sit down and like meditate, it exacerbated my anxiety even more because in a way you're like trying to think your way or like mentally get yourself back to a place of calm when you're just sitting, with it. And so I found that, somatic tools are just body-based techniques that help you to um, calm the body first and the mind will follow. It really helped me to ground myself and come at my anxiety through a different angle, and I think there is a lot of emphasis today on, inner work and like breaking down those thought patterns that aren't serving you. And that totally has a helpful place. But there's a whole other element of, your body is carrying that stress and tension that your mind, gives off, like everything is interconnected and holistic. And so yeah, that's how I that was long-winded, but that's how I got
No,
into the work that I do now. So
that's brilliant. So there's a few points I want to touch on that you mentioned. So you mentioned about the degree in media and film production. So obviously I know that you do a lot of videos, you do a lot of like reels and that kind of stuff. So do you think that that had an impact on your anxiety?
I think that, it gave me an outlet for uh creativity, and it helped me feel like all the things I've been going through or went through had a purpose and a place. And like I think, you know, my anxiety is really what made me want to, it made me develop a good relationship with myself, but it also, I think, like I have a passion for media creating and creating media. And I found like I was like, oh, if I marry these two things, I'm seeing, all of these people that are also struggling. And, there's not a lot of access, not everyone has access to mental health care. And I just wanted people to be aware. And I know that while I was in school, I found out and I learned like just how powerful the medium of media is. And I think, it really helped me kind of come up with a way to kind of live out my purpose in that way, because I do feel like I've gone through everything I've gone through to help people. So it was, I think, more of like a creative outlet. I don't think it like contributed more to my anxiety, but in a way it kind of helped me channel kind of my stress and tension. So yeah, I'd
Brilliant.
say that. Yeah.
Brilliant. So this brings on to my next point. So obviously you had that channel, and I always suggest, finding something that you enjoy, whether it's the gym, whether it's, like you said, media, something creative, drawing, music. You need to have something to release all that build up energy, because anxiety carries a lot of energy. And I guess this leads on to the shamanic stuff as well. But like you said, you had to go through it to learn who you were. So you said you went to a Catholic school as well. And my next point is, a lot of people find that the anxiety, their mental health, their energies get different when they're around a faith, a religion, that type
Mm.
of community. But I've also heard people say that it's had the opposite effect, where they feel more pressure on themselves. They feel like they can't be themselves. They have to be a certain type of way. So would you say that going to a Catholic school, would you say that had an impact on you?
I'd say for me, I it helped me develop a base of realizing that there's more out there than just myself. I would say that my family is not super religious. I did go to that school and, I had that basis. I had religion classes. I had, that around me. But I think, my parents are they're spiritual. And, I think that I felt the freedom to kind of I had that basis and that foundation of connecting myself to something higher than myself. And that honestly kind of, I think, carried me through the parts of my life that were so dark. And so I think for me, it wasn't really like something that added more pressure. I think, if anything added more pressure to, my anxiety around social acceptance, it would be more like, honestly, social media and just, the culture around that. And just, yeah, I think, the experience of being in Catholic school, I think it was more of just like it helped me develop realizing that, I know everyone has their own beliefs. I feel like it helped me develop just a connection to something greater than myself, and it made me disconnect a little bit more from, the severity of my problems in my life. So that's what I would say for that. That was kind of went off on a tangent,
Yeah,
but there
no,
you
no,
go.
no, no. And it made perfect sense. And this is why I kind of asked the question, because, like you said, everyone's got their own beliefs and there's no right or wrong way. And religion and belief is all the same. It's all about having faith in something. And
Yeah.
this is where everyone can agree that they have their beliefs on how things should be. Whereas some people, it changes them and, they walk away from it because they realize it's not for them. Other people embed it and create it into their life. So you said that your parents were spiritual. So do you think
Mhm.
this had an impact on why you went more down the shamanic route, the energy route? rather than just straight up faith in a different type of religion?
Yeah, I think, my parents were very open to helping me to treat also my anxiety in a holistic way. And so meditation, it can also be like a very spiritual technique, but it's very great for calming, really great for calming anxiety. And so I think because they had that open perspective, it somehow like made me discover more techniques for myself. And I know a lot of people, when they do struggle with anxiety, they go on anxiety medication, and that is so amazing and it has its place. I never ended up actually going on, medication, because I've had all these tools, like meditation and like, you know, different somatic tools, breath work, all of this type of, all these different techniques. And I think that that really helped me to come at my anxiety from that angle of like developing a skill set. And medication is still awesome and has its place. And I know that everyone, has their different levels of anxiety and different struggles. And, but yeah, I think that the openness that they had to those different types of modes of healing definitely helped me. My mom had me in acupuncture and different types of Eastern medicine to help me with my anxiety as well. So that route was also very helpful to me. And in turn, like all of these different techniques also helped me to develop that really like deep foundation within myself and like bring myself back to my own power because we all, have that capacity and that power within ourselves to we don't have to believe everything we think. We aren't our thoughts, our feelings are visitors, and we can remember that we have our own light of awareness and we don't have to, feed into these thoughts, and we can direct our awareness towards things that, um, are helpful to us. And it's like, that's also another thing. Sorry, I'm like getting into this now, but I think
It's
that's
absolutely
why.
fine.
Oh yeah, thanks. Sorry. That I kind of like developed my brand off of that because our mind and our inner space is a garden, and we can either choose to water the flowers or we can water the weeds. And so, like my mind grove kind of developed around that theme and aspect because you have the power to place your awareness on things that feed you and that feel good. And I know that's not to like you know, say that you'll never have another anxious moment or you'll never be angry or triggered or overwhelmed again. It's just about knowing how to feed energy into the techniques and pour energy into the things that bring you back to a place of calm. And by doing that through repeated action, that's how you're able to, bring yourself back home to that place of calm more often. And yeah, that would be something I would say for all that. That was a tangent, but
Yeah.
there you go. That's how
No,
all that
that
came
that
together.
was that was brilliant. So the fact that you've had supportive parents in the energy side have kind of set you on your own life path, kind of opened your eyes to it at the early days. So you was quite dipping your toe in while you're still doing other things, which is really interesting. And I guess obviously you experiencing like acupuncture and you're experiencing all these different things. It's definitely had an impact. And I like the saying that you just said about the you can either water the plants or you can water the weeds because that is so true. When you focus on the positive, you focus on the positive, you see more positive things. Focus on the negative, you'll see more negatives. And this was something I had to learn when I was going through my darkness was if you keep on being jealous, you keep on showing anger towards other people, and you're not acknowledging it, you're just letting it flow kind of like an avalanche, you're going to feel worse inside. But when you start to praise other people, look for the good in other people, that's, and you summed it up very well with the watering your plants rather than the weeds. So let's go into the shamanics a little bit with it. Obviously, I know you explained that you went down the route of the mind grove because of how important the mind is. So, what is shamanic? So, people listening here now, how would you explain it to them if they've never heard of it before?
Absolutely. So, somatic therapy is a body-based technique that it's a therapy that focuses on releasing the built-up tension and stress that we carry in our body. And so, it really works with body awareness. And so, um, our bodies store trauma. And I think when people think of the word trauma, they think, it's easy to think, oh, it has to be like this big thing, that's happened to you. And it's, somatic therapy looks at trauma through the lens of it's really anything that can disconnect you from your most authentic self, anything that, causes a separation inwardly. And it can be, little things growing up. Everyone has, endured a level of trauma. And so, somatic therapy and somatic tools focus on basically bringing that body awareness back in. I think today it's, a lot of us, we live from the neck up and we are so caught up in our minds. We like forget we have a body and we aren't living in tune with, what's happening inside. And so, one thing that we were taught basically to focus on with ourselves, and if we do end up, coaching other people, is to when you are feeling anxious or stressed or overwhelmed in some way, emotionally, where in your body are you feeling that the most? For me, my anxiety shows up in my stomach, it shows up in my chest, and I feel really tense. And so when, you're beginning to bring that body awareness in, you first focus on what area of the body you're feeling it in the most, and then you can, give it a number 1 through 5, like 5 being the most tense, 1 being the least tense. Um, and what that does is that brings awareness out of your head back into your body. It brings awareness to the location, where you tend to feel a lot of this emotion and the intensity of the emotion. And so, yeah, somatic therapy is, just amazing because I think, it helps you to really calm the body. And the act of bringing that awareness back into your body is something that is so grounding. And so there are so many different somatic tools. Basically, a somatic tool is a technique where you are, you know, bringing that body awareness in. It's any type of technique. And so there's so many different techniques, and that's what I share on, my channel, my YouTube channel, my Mind Grove, and my Instagram, my Mind Grove. Uh, it's just these different techniques for people because there are so many different, skills and sets of things out there that, things are going to work differently for different people. Like some people aren't going to resonate so much with certain things. But there are so many ways, that you can work these self care things in for yourself. And I think a lot of people have this, idea around self care as it has to be this big effort filled routine. And it's like not everyone has, that time in their busy schedule to devote, time to themselves. And really, with somatic tools, it's just about micro moments of mindfulness throughout the day, and it's just about, one of my favorite tools is the extended out breath, and so that is just when you breathe in and then you breathe out for an extended period of time, like that's longer than the period of your in breath, and that helps you to lower your heart rate. And it's just like a quick little discreet tool that you can use that not everyone has to know that you're doing. And it's awesome because if you're, anxious in public, you don't want to, bring attention to yourself. So it's just a nice little tool. And there's so many different tools out there, but that's kind of the basis of somatics.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So, shamanics, obviously, you've experienced quite a lot to be able to coach it and to express it in another way. What is the training process that you had to go through? Just walk us through from start to finish your journey with shamanic. So, how you got into it, what was your first class? Just walk us through the process.
Yeah, so I guess I started using somatic tools like before I really knew what they were when I was anxious. And so that would be like my first kind of, I guess, exposure to using techniques that calm my body first. And then I found and I was researching more about it and I found the certification. And so I enrolled in that and we learned, all about the ways in which, trauma and emotions can be stored in your body and how they can cause physical disease later, because really your body is an energy field. And when things are not flowing freely, things get blocked. When you're holding tension in your muscles from, maybe you're anxious, you create blockages in your body. And so it can lead to physical manifestations of, there being issues, for yourself. And so we learned that. We did all these different practices and meditations. about just like learning, how the shape of your body affects your emotions as well. And so we would, I have a whole series that I've started about, posture, and I can go into that later. But yeah, we learned that. We had an exam. We did a lot of like in-person, meetings, and I was able to just learn all the ins and outs of bringing body awareness into your life and how impactful it can be for other people. And um, so yeah, that was like the basis of my course. And I think I had a basis of an understanding of, how these tools had helped myself. But then, after my certification, I have a much broader or just awareness of how these different tools can help other people, and how, different ways to implement them into your life, and different ways, to use these and create habits and a routine for yourself. And, I think it's all really about bringing yourself back to the realization that your body can heal itself, and you have the power to, create that environment and support your body in that healing. And we all, can return to that space within ourselves when we learn to cultivate it in ourselves as many times as we need. And it's just about creating that safe inner sanctuary for yourself. And we're all disconnected. So many things are disconnecting us now in our life, and just in the world. And I think it's so important to have that layer of like, I reconnect with myself. I have that foundation and that relationship with myself. And these tools really help you do that. But that's, kind of the course of my certification and how that happened.
Brilliant, brilliant. So there's a few points that you mentioned in there. So the first point was that you said that you did it without even realizing that you was doing the techniques, and I think this is important that a lot of people actually shy away from like the shamanic stuff, the energy stuff, but they do it without realizing. They might not put a label on it, but they do it without realizing, because a lot of people, when you get anxious, your breathing increases, your breathing decreases. This is all forms of, like you said, shamanics. And then the posture thing was a very good one, where you hold tension in your body. There's a book by Jordan Peterson, and one of the rules is 12 rules of life, and one of the rules he talks about stand with your shoulders back and your head high. And he basically describes the lobsters. So lobsters, they can walk past one another and they'll know each other just from a scent. So they'll know how big they are. And the lobsters who are more like out there, more confident, they're the ones whose posture is better. So it transfers not just in humans, it transfers through other animals as well, the posture. And this just goes to show that energy is everywhere. So that was a very good point. And do you think that social media and people sitting at office desks and all this has really affected where the tension is held? Because I find myself, when I'm editing videos, I find myself a lot more slunched, and every like 10 minutes now I have to readjust my shoulders. So do you think it's had a big impact on things?
Absolutely. I think, something that's very interesting that a lot of us have developed because we're always working at a desk or we're on our phone is forward head posture. And that's like when we're, cranked
Yeah.
forward like this. And so what that actually does, is we have a very important nerve that goes between, down from our brain, our cranial bone, and down into our spine, and that's called the vagus nerve. And this is the most important nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system. And without this nerve, we literally like can't calm down. And so when we are in a forward head posture, it actually compresses the pathway of that nerve, and it can keep us in a state of fight or flight. And so, I think something else that's interesting is like, there's a lot of science behind the way that we hold our body and the shape that we hold our body in. And the way we hold our body has just as much an impact on the emotions and the mood that we're in as, our thoughts do on our body. We forget that, it goes both ways. And so, when you are standing taller, that's so cool. You mentioned that with the lobsters. That's, yeah, so interesting. When we do stand taller, it actually like increases the level of serotonin and dopamine in our brain. Our brains read that posture as an emotion, and that's called the mind-body feedback loop. And so the same is, true for when you're hunched over. Like you are reinforcing feelings of hopelessness and, it's easier to stay stuck in a dark mental place when you are, hunched over. It's hard to feel confident, because your cortisol levels are increasing because your body and your brain are reading this position as a certain emotion. And so there's, I think it's interesting, and I think that ties back into, just somatics as well. As a lot of people sometimes, especially with like breath work and things, they can tend to think it's like woo woo, and they don't realize there's so much science behind it. And even with just like, I know EFT tapping is like a big technique that people are into now. A lot of people kind of, you know, are like, oh, what is that? But there's so much science behind it, and you're tapping on acupressure points and energetic meridians that are like highly rooted in traditional Chinese medicine. All of these different somatic tools, and our body and just this research around our body, it's all heavily rooted in science. And so yeah, I think, and I think also like a lot of people ask, when it comes to posture, what is good posture? What does that look like? And so there are so many different, one cue that I love is just like remembering and thinking about the crown of your head. And, when you do catch yourself in a forward head posture, it's just lifting the crown of your head up, elevating the crown of your head. And that helps you to kind of, your shoulders are back and down. Um, Whenever I am noticing that I'm, in a bad uh, posture, it helps me a lot. And something else that's so interesting is people actually practice something called power posing. And so it's where, if you're feeling really unconfident, or like say you're about to do a presentation and you're like, I really need to feel confident right now, you can practice like sit or standing tall and having your hands on your hips, or like, having your arms outspread. And this really helps you to, reinforce these feelings in your body. And, same thing with just like smiling. Our body and our brain can't tell the difference between a genuine smile and a fake smile. So it sends those same, neurotransmitters and everything, all these things have an impact. You can literally do a fake smile to get yourself in a better mood. You can change your posture to get yourself in a better mood. It goes both ways. You don't always have to like think your way there. There are so many different tools that you can use to come like from a bottom up approach of the body to the mind, instead of always a top down approach of like, thoughts to brain, or, thoughts to body. But yeah, that's what I've been doing with the posture reset series. So
That's brilliant that you touched on that. I actually wanted you to give some examples of how people can improve their posture, improve their mood, and the smiling and the stand tall thing. I used to, when I was at my lowest, and I used to be alcoholic, I had gambling addiction, severely depressed. And 2022, that was one of the things I said I was going to start smiling every single day at me in the mirror. And I'd wake up in the morning and I'd fake a smile and I'd hold it for like 5 minutes. I'd stand tall and strong. That was one of the things, rather than slunched over, because what I noticed was over time, the more I was doing it, the more natural it was coming, the more that I didn't want it to be a fake smile anymore. So then I was genuinely happy to see myself smiling, see a different version of me, see this confident person who's standing up tall. And that's something I would highly recommend to everyone. And exactly like you said, when I'm having down days, because people ask me all the time, how can you remain so positive, so happy all the time? And it's exactly like what you said. When I catch myself having those feelings where I start to feel a little bit down, a little bit sluggish, and all that kind of stuff, I'll just smile. I'll start dancing. I'll start lifting my posture up, because even dancing, it releases, like you said, the tension. And when you're dancing and you're in like flow state, you're just moving your body, shaking it off. You can't
yeah.
help but be happier. So
Hmm.
that's very, very interesting that you made reference to that. And for someone now who sat at their desk, uh, how would you guide them through now adjusting their posture? Just for a quick, 2 minute, 3 minutes. So if you'd like to just guide them through so they can alter their posture now while listening to the podcast.
Yeah, I would say, like I said, it's all about the crown of the head, lifting the crown of the head. So, um, it's really, when it's catching yourself first when you are sitting like hunched over. And then it's just bringing a gentle awareness to shoulders back and down, you know, crown of your head up, lengthening the spine, and, taking a few deep breaths, and just bringing that body awareness out of your head and back into your body. But really, it's simple. It's just about remembering those little cues, and um, pair it with deep breathing, pair it with a smile, and see if it shifts your mood. See, you can experiment with yourself, like try and see, if these have an impact on you throughout the day. And, the beauty of it is you can do this while working at a desk job. You can do this while walking through the grocery store, pushing a cart. It's working these, little moments in of just like bringing that awareness back into your body and, fixing your posture. I, by all means, still have to do this a billion times for myself because my posture can be terrible. So it's just about, that repeated action. And, the more you do that, not only does it help you to, feel better in your body, but it influences, you'll feel more confident. You'll feel a stronger level of being in tune with your body, and you'll feel more grounded. And it really is all about those micro moments of just repeatedly coming back to yourself. So that's how I would say, just to gently guide yourself back and have compassion for yourself and give yourself grace, because like, a lot of the times we can be so hard on ourselves, especially when it comes to like helping ourselves feel better. And we want to kind of like fix ourselves. It's just having that perspective of compassion, and grace. So that's what I would say for that.
Brilliant. So when you was learning shamanics, was there any books or articles or any websites in particular, videos that really like changed your perspective on it to either give you more knowledge or give you a different approach to it? Is there anything you can think of that you was like, yeah, this is the kind of direction I want to go with it? Because like you said at the start, there's so many different versions of it. How did you
Yeah.
end up with the your style?
Oh, I love that. So I think for myself, um, I, I got my certification through my vinyasa practice, which is heavily rooted in yoga, and I already had been practicing yoga. And I have that background of going to acupuncture when I was younger. And so I think I like to share a lot of acupressure points because they're easy and they're extremely effective. And I think I just pulled a lot from, of course, what I was learning in my course, but also a lot from just like my prior, experience. And I've, it anxiety, unfortunately, was, like, as hard as it was, it really made me, like, learn all these things about myself, and it made me learn all these tools, and I learned what works for myself and what doesn't, and, of course, that's different for everybody, but, I think that just pulling on, my prior experience, and then, um, my course was more heavily rooted in yoga, so, I think that that kinda helped shape, it to be more not just about the mind, the body, but also, the spirit and, um, you know, a return to yourself, and, bringing a it's kinda like just a remembering of your own power, and so that's kind of why what I share, it all kind of brings back, that common thread of coming back to a place of regulation for yourself. And whether that be through somatic tools. I know right now, a lot of my focus is on somatic tools. But, there are also so many other ways to regulate yourself, whether that be, in nature or like movement. I believe movement is a form of medicine. And I'm getting my training in classical Pilates as well. So that will be coming up around the corner for myself as well. But so, um, somatic tools are absolutely a spoke of it, and as well as like mindset shifts and perspective shifts, because that absolutely has a place. But I guess that's kind of how I wove everything together, and so and my yeah, that's like my goal with my brand is to have it be like a um, all these different modes of healing that people can turn to, and it's a holistic platform, that they open it up and they do what they need that day, whether that be a form of movement, whether that be somatic tool, whether that be, a mindset shift, a meditation, a breathing technique, all these different things. It meets you where you're at. And so that's kind of, I'm still, of course, developing it because I've only, started it. 5 months ago is when I like started this whole thing. So, um,
Brilliant.
but yeah, so yes, so we'll see how it all twists and turns and, works out. But yeah.
Okay, so that's brilliant because that leads on to my next question was, what's the aim of My Mind Grove, obviously, and tell us the story how you decided, because you just said 5 months, so that's not long. I'm not sure how old you are, but obviously you've had a lot of experience before you started. So I just want to know why, when? Just give us the story of My Mind Grove.
Totally. I'm 26 now. I just had my birthday.
Oh,
But
happy
I
birthday.
thanks, oh, thanks. I think it all came together because uh I'd already been so fascinated about, just holistic wellness and, all these different techniques. I had like a big period of time, when I got into high school and college and my undergrad where I was just always learning about it because I just loved it. And I thought, it was just so amazing all these different techniques that you could really, use for yourself. I would meditate daily and I would, do all these things. And so I think that created a really strong foundation for myself just for my own coping. Like it was purely for my own just sanity and feeling good in my own body. And so um when I moved to DC, that was really eye-opening for me because I realized just how many of us are living in this state of disconnection, and we're chronically online. And I think, I found myself in a job up there that I'm very grateful for my experiences up there, but it wasn't aligned with what I, felt like was my path. I was, working more in terms of like film and media. And I really knew that I deep down had this passion to share with other people these tools. And so, I left and I moved home. I live with my parents now. I'm like back home during this period of time. I moved home in March of this year. And I thought about like, what do I want to do? How do I want to, shape this? And I knew that, I also really know that I don't think the 9 to 5 is a schedule that necessarily is something that, suits myself. And I knew that I kind of wanted to see if just take a chance on myself and see if I could, start this business and create this thing. And feel fulfilled while doing it. And so from the period of March to uh, July, I, was working freelance for a media company here. So I still had some income, coming in. I wasn't, and so I decided to take that period of time to kind of like, my mom was also very heavily, involved in helping me, come up with kind of a structure for this. And then I started taking certification courses. I finished just, more recently my somatic certification, so like a few months ago. But I didn't start posting until July. So I kind of like start that as like my beginning of my like 5 months ago is like the beginning of when I started everything. But I knew that I wanted to, make it a thing where I heavily involve people that I'm, trying to help. And so like I try to make my space really intentional, like my page is intentional. And I'm trying to weave more of that in of, hearing feedback and, being open to constructive criticism and hearing what tools work for people, what tools aren't working, what topics they'd like me to touch on more. And I want it to be something where their input, genuinely shapes the space that I create for them. And I want it to be a place that it meets people where they're at. So that's, I guess, the, trajectory up until now. And it's been tough. I think like, uh, you know, it's been in my own mental battle because for myself, I, was always I had like I lived in a fun city. I like had all this going and then now I'm living at home and I'm betting on myself and my support system is smaller and it's strong, but I have I'm very grateful for my support system, but it's been a transition in a period of time and I've learned a lot about myself and I've grown in my own self-confidence but I'm very excited to see where it goes and I know that I'll keep taking baby steps in the right direction and I really think that I could help a lot of people and I know that I'm not perfect and I have my own set of things that I struggle with but I really want people to know that they're not alone and we're in this together. I'm still learning and figuring out all of this just as much as everyone else is and so I just want to give people support. So anyway, that's how that happened.
Brilliant. No, no, no,
Yeah.
that's very good. And that's actually really inspiring. The fact that it just goes to show that even if, when you work hard, you get the qualifications and you think something's right, it's never too late to have a career change. It's never too late to change path. If you're feeling drawn to go to something else, like you was drawn to helping people, you wasn't drawn to the 9 to 5. And it's good you still got the skills, like you said, you did a bit of freelancing. So you still got the skills there to fall back
Mhm.
on, but you're gonna give it a go. And it's really inspiring that you're trying to build the community base as well, because obviously they're the people paying for it. They're the people who's going to be using it. So it's a smart business to aim it towards them. So obviously you said your mom helped you with the structure. Has she got experience in business before, business plans and that kind of stuff?
Yes, I am very grateful. My parents, they have their own business, and so their knowledge has been really helpful for me in terms of like structuring out my business. And and my mom also has her own set of mental health techniques that she works on for herself. She does Tai Chi, she does like all these different techniques. And my whole family does, honestly. Throughout different periods of our life, we've all like learned different things and shared different techniques with each other. We're all just very open to like that type of, that mode of healing. And so, um, her input as well. She used to work as a school psychologist, so her input was amazing for me in terms of just like and she still continually helps me shape it. I run a lot of things by her, but she has a knowledge base that has really helped me just kind of be aware of like how other people might be perceiving things, and what could be a better way or a better angle to come at certain tools, and how also with media it's all about storytelling, and how am I going to frame this story, how am I going to get this information out in a short form way, in a helpful way that's impactful. And so I honestly don't think I could be doing what I'm doing, obviously, without, their help and without their support. So I'm incredibly grateful for, you know, uh, all their input. And yeah, so her help has been amazing, as well as my dad. So yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. So for the future, you touched upon what you're looking at doing for the future. So what other qualifications are you looking to go into for the future?
Yeah, so right now, I've signed up to be classically trained in Pilates as an instructor, and I think that that will really help bring in like that spoke of movement is medicine, because I really feel like the more you're moving your body, the harder it is for those emotions to get stuck and trapped and stagnant. And so with that, what I love about Pilates is that it's mindful movement, and it's about the mind body connection, and it's intentional movement. And so I'm really excited to delve more into that. It's Pilates has been something that I've loved doing on my own for myself, but I realized that it's something that could feed my business from that angle as well. One day, I want to have a YouTube channel where I have as well, Pilates exercises for people. And on my platform one day, I'd love to have different intentional Pilates workouts. And I think that there's so much that can go hand in hand, with those body based techniques. You can literally cultivate any type of routine however you'd like. And so I'm excited to learn more. I constantly want to keep growing and learning, and educating myself more on all these different ways that we can heal our body. And I think you know and not to go totally off on a tangent, but like I said earlier, I think mental health care is not always accessible for people. I had one friend that was in the military, and he couldn't go to therapy because he'd get marked down for it. And so I think like I just, am really excited to help empower people with these tools, because there's so many ways that you could come back to yourself, and there's so many ways to help yourself that people are unaware of. And some things might not work for you. That's okay. You could try and, and experiment with all these different things to figure out what works best for you. And, you know, um, bring your power back, your thoughts. You don't have to stay in this mental prison of anxiety and stress and depression, anything you're struggling with. You can take your power back. Your thoughts don't have the power, you do. So anyway,
Yeah, no,
that's
that's brilliant. So your main goal is basically just to spread more knowledge about mental health, helping other people in different ways than the traditional sitting and talking, that ways that they can do this self and accessible is the main way how you would summarize it. Brilliant. So obviously you're probably doing the Pilates, like you said, going to cover breath work and then just other general things. That's really, really cool. And do you think that you're going to have a positive impact on people, or do you think that there's going to be people out there who, because the way you've taught it or the way that you're teaching them, hasn't helped them? Do you think you're going to have any backlash?
I know that there's people, that may not be as open to, this type of healing and this mode of healing. And that's okay. I think, um, every single person on this earth, and that does work like this and that wants to help people has their angle. And I think that, my angle will speak to certain people and it won't speak to other people. And, that's okay. I think that, as long as I'm helping one person or, as long as there is a positive impact, um, I am okay with that, and I know that, it's okay. I get that, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I know that this mode of healing is not everyone's cup of tea. That's just, how life is. And so, that's kind of the perspective I'll keep with that. And, of course, open to constructive criticism, in the same vein. But, you know, yeah, that's gonna be like
Yeah.
how I shape it. So yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask because, like, obviously, some people they set out with the intention. Like, I did it when I first started my TikTok. I set out with the intention I want to help everyone, and then the more that I've started doing it, the more I've realized that I'm not going to help everyone because some people it's not going to gel with. I'm not going to be their cup of tea, like you said, and some people just don't want to help themselves. So I just wanted to see what kind of angle you was looking at, just to see if you're at that point yet, because obviously it's not my place to be like this is what you got to do, or if you've learned that that's the case. So it's really good that you already got your idea on where you're going, the direction you're going. That's very cool. So if anyone was looking to get into shamanics or they were looking to start, right? They've never done it before and they're looking to start, what would you recommend they go looking for or they research or obviously I know they can sign up to you, but what can they do to
Yeah.
start?
Yeah, if you want a better understanding of just how somatic therapy is rooted, in science, the book The Body Keeps the Score is a great resource. I have not read the whole thing, but I've pulled from pieces and parts and there's great moments in there. And also, I think just beginning to by yourself bring in that body awareness for yourself. And if you're someone who feels so entirely disconnected from your body, and that's okay. That's a lot of people nowadays. And just starting with like bringing awareness to your hand and like closing your eyes and like just being like, if I don't touch anything and if I close my eyes, how can I tell that my hand is still there? Like, do I feel the energy field in my body? And getting better at practicing, scanning your body and developing an awareness around, body scanning. And I think that, this opens up a whole new level of awareness for people that a lot of people are disconnected from, that they don't realize just how helpful this can be, for themselves when they have a high awareness of what's happening within. You don't have to reach these points where you're boiling over. You can be like more in tune and realize like, oh, I'm feeling a little tension and anxiety here. Maybe I can pause and take a moment before it becomes, this thing, and before this trigger, comes up. So little ways, you could Google as well, different somatic tools. There's so many different ones out there. There's so many different books. Even, vagus nerve exercises are also great because that also, brings in that level of body awareness. Googling, researching on your own, finding different ways that you think are going to be best for you. That's what I would say.
Okay, so obviously I know there's lots of different ways. Is there any ways that you would say avoid this until you have a better understanding or start with this one in particular?
Yes, I would sometimes, it can be, if you have gone through something very traumatic, it's very important to take things in baby steps. And so uh like I said, I guess I would say like just starting by feeling into an emotion. EFT tapping is an amazing, just like general way to, start tapping in inwardly, to yourself. Don't bite off more than you can chew. If you're feeling like you have a lot of deep emotions, inside, don't push yourself over that edge of like your point of tolerance because you don't want to, you know, it's important to go into things sensitively because if you have gone through big traumatic events, you don't want to re-traumatize yourself or so I would definitely say things they can work on initially could be the extended out breath tool, um, tapping, EFT tapping, acupressure points. One that I love that's just, there's a point on the top of your head called the byway acupressure point, which is just great to start doing. And it just, doing that for a few minutes, pairing that with deep breathing, changing the shape of your body, being aware of the way you carry your body, just those little modes of entry into, a whole world of techniques and tools that they could, of course, go further down and find, what works best. I hope I answered that
Yeah, no,
well,
no,
but
no, no. That
yeah.
was that was brilliant. Because obviously, like you said, there is lots of information out there. There is lots of rabbit hole to go down, and obviously, I know a little bit about shamanics. I know, obviously, you got like the drumming circle. You also got like the sound bowls, the breath work, the acupuncture. I've learned all about that. The book you recommended, I've read that book as well, which is a very powerful book. And would you say that diet has a big impact on your shamanic journey as well?
That's a good question. I definitely you mean the gut and the brain are so linked, and I'm no expert by any means on like the gut brain link, but I definitely think, our body intuitively knows what foods are better for ourselves. And I think when you tune in more to mindful eating, I think that that's also a very interesting exercise, but I think, that helps you realize, you know, what foods make you anxious. Like for me, my anxiety really does stem around my stomach. And I notice when for me, it's when I have colder foods that kind of make me, feel a little dysregulated. And warmer foods are usually better for my gut, as well as like warm teas and warm drinks. And so, food is absolutely medicine, and that's absolutely an aspect of holistic wellness. And like it's really everything is so connected. So definitely, diets and, the more, processed foods, that we do eat, um, and the sugar, sugar and anxiety levels have a big link. So the more sugar you intake, that definitely can, contribute to your emotional wellness and well-being. So there's absolutely a link there, for sure.
Brilliant. And would you say that this is accessible to anyone, or do you think it's only accessible to a limited amount of people? So, say for instance, someone was like severely obese, or severely overweight, or super skinny. Can they all do the same exercises or techniques, or would it be a difference depending on the person?
You mean just like as far as like somatic
Yeah,
techniques?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I these techniques work for everybody, and so and I'm sometimes, they won't sometimes some people won't like specific techniques. I would always say you could always, reach out to your healthcare provider as well if, you have different things going on. I wouldn't say maybe I that's a blanket statement. They don't work for, certain things don't work for everybody. Certain things work for specific people, certain things work for other specific people. It's just about finding the resources that work for you and your specific, situation. And reaching out for that, support and that healthcare, and doing your own research as well. But these techniques, they do have a lot of, a science, the science, there are science backed, and they are, really helpful. And yeah, I would say figuring out what works best for you, and the more that you are in tune with your body, the more you're able to understand which techniques aren't maybe the most helpful for you in certain situations. And, um, you know, that's what I would say for that. I hope I answered. Yeah.
Brilliant. No, no, no. That's absolutely brilliant. So just remember that obviously it's not going to cure all the problems that you go on if you got health problems and stuff, but it can help benefit it. Obviously, always seek a medical professional before
Absolutely.
you take part in any of the activities. But I just wanted it to show that no matter your background, no matter where you're from, no matter your situation, there's gonna be a technique out there for you. So you answered that absolutely amazing, Kenzie. So the last couple of things I just want, if you was to sum up how your life have changed since the shamanics, how would you say that it's impact you? How would you say that you're feeling now compared to before? Just what is the change from before you did it to what you've done now? How do you feel?
Yeah, before I was very anxious. I felt kind of like a leaf blowing in the wind, like I didn't have anything rooting and grounding myself down. I felt kind of like subject to what happened in my life and just like a whirl of anxiety, and I didn't really, have, you know, there were moments where it was very dark. I didn't, know if I would ever feel, better again, if I would ever not be anxious. And I know that there are people out there that are feeling that way now. But, things really can, get brighter and can shift. And, now with the introduction of, all that I've learned, with somatic tools and somatic healing and, all these different modes of healing, I feel so much more in tune with myself, so much more grounded, so much more, like, so much better able to be aware of when, I'm feeling anxious in my body and to, I know what I need for myself now. I know if I'm feeling extra anxious, I'm not going to meditate because I'm already anxious. Meditation for me works better when I am not anxious and I'm just, cultivating, feeling closer and deeper, to that foundation within myself of calm, So it's just somatic tools, because they bring so much awareness in, it really helps you to shed light on areas of, your life that may be contributing to things that are not helping you feel the best emotionally. And it may be, you know, keeping you, stuck. And so, yeah, I feel so much more confident, bright, connected to myself. And I feel now as though I, have a skill set that I can carry with me throughout my life, no matter what I face. And I now trust in my own body's capacity to right itself and to heal itself and to bring itself back to a place of calm. And so it's, yeah, just these tools really empower you to realize you have the power and you can, bring yourself back. So that would be like the transition I would say for myself. But yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So overall, you've gained more confidence in you. You've gained more authenticity in you. So if someone is struggling with an identity crisis where they don't really know who they are, shamanic healing can really find you your authentic self, can really improve you in more than just the mind, the way that you carry yourself, the way you interact with other people. So
Yeah.
overall it seems very beneficial, and it's been really really interesting learning about it. And I know that we could have probably talked on and on and on about all the different techniques and everything like that. The last thing I did want to mention is you did say about a series on your YouTube. I just want to talk about that a little bit, about what you've already got for people that they can go and look at now, so that you got not so much like traffic, but you're helping people. The podcast is actually going to help the people. So what have you got available for the people at the moment?
Yeah, I have a bunch of smaller somatic tools and techniques that I share as I in my YouTube shorts, but I also have a number of longer extended practices on my YouTube channel as well, that I'm trying to get more into and to share more of. But these are great practices for and great beginner practices because I know not everyone has a lot of time. Some of them are 5 minutes, some are longer, but I go more in depth into why a lot of these somatic tools work and how they help you scientifically and biologically. And so that's what I have going on now on my my YouTube. And I did just recently start a posture reset series, more about just the way you shape your body, or the way you can influence your mood by how you shape your body. And so I have that on there as well. But yeah, feel free to check that out and let me know what's working for you and what's not. If people are headed there, I'm so open to the feedback. And um, yeah, my goal is to help people. So that's what's on there.
Brilliant. So, with the exercises that you got available, are they things that, because the big thing that you keep saying about is about people don't have much time. So these are like really quick fix. Would you be able to double them up when you're driving, or when you're out for a walk, when you're watching Netflix, when you're doing the dishes? Have you got exercises there for the people that they can do and pair up with day-to-day tasks?
Yeah, absolutely. There, so you know on my YouTube, it's kind of easier to go back through, all the shorts of the smaller techniques and as well as like some of the extended practices. But like for sure, they can take, these small techniques and work them into a toolbox of their own that kind of works well for them. And it can be something even as simple as like humming while you're doing the dishes. This, activates your vagus nerve and it helps you go into the parasympathetic response. Something as simple as, holding a pressure point for a few minutes and pairing it with deep breathing while you're at a stoplight or while you're on lunch break, or you know it's just about carving in those little moments for yourself. And they can absolutely, stack them on top of each other. And all of these things are going to like, especially added together, are going to like help influence your mood in a positive way. And so, yeah, they can absolutely take what they want and leave what they don't want and stack it up how it works best for them.
Obviously it's your content and stuff like that, and you explain that really well, that you can do it. For me, I would like to see them in like a practical aspect, if that makes sense, because like you keep saying, the main point that you keep saying is these techniques you can do even if you haven't got much time. But what you just said then, they can pair it up when they don't have no time. So if people was actually seeing the action being done while, so like you said, oh, I'm washing the dishes, I'm doing a quick pressure point, or I'm brushing my teeth and I'm doing some tapping while I'm brushing my teeth, I feel like people would engage with this kind of stuff more because it puts it into real life situations rather than chipping out time in their schedule for themselves. Because let's face it, it's important to do it, but no one does it. So if they
Right.
can see that someone is pairing it up, this is the type of content I would love to see. So obviously I know it's your content and stuff,
Yeah,
but
I can totally do that, go more down that route. I think that that would be helpful for sure. Yeah.
because I think it separates that barrier from, like we said, the woo woo, the people who's like, oh, that wouldn't work for me because I'm not going to sit on a yoga mat. I'm not going to go and sit outside. I don't want to do this in this situation. But if you show it, like the breathing, for instance, showing that you can do the breathing out on a busy bench and it don't look like you're doing it,
Mhm.
or showing that you can double and I think that would show that it is a natural thing, that it's not an embarrassing thing, that you have got time for it. Whereas I feel like a lot of the time when people are like, oh, do this for 5 minutes, people don't want to do it for 5 minutes because we
Yeah.
just don't make time for ourselves. But obviously that's up to you if you want to take it on board
No,
or
I
not,
love that. That
because
is so helpful. I think that that could be a great angle. Thank you for that. I think that would really help, people to implement it more into their life, so I'm definitely gonna try more of that. Yeah, thank you.
like as you was talking, I was like, oh, this sounds absolutely amazing, and I was like running it through in my head, like, oh well, when would I actually fit it in? Because even though I do have time, I wouldn't go out my way to do it unless it became a habit. And obviously, to make it a habit, they say it has to be over 21 days for something to become a habit,
Mm,
because
okay,
that's
yeah.
when it starts to actually create the paths in your brain for your neurons. And that's another conversation. But
That's so cool, yeah.
I think that you could help. Obviously, I know you're helping a lot of people already, and I saw your video recently. You was asking for feedback. You was asking, and that was the only thing I was thinking when I was scrolling and doing my research before the podcast. Was they're all good examples, but they're all from the direction of you go into a class, you go in, you taking the
Yeah.
time for yourself, watching the video,
Mhm,
rather than doing it, right, I've watched the video, I can do this now in my spare time, if that makes
mhm.
sense. Where so I just thought that doing it in a real life situation, like you just mentioned, could help more people, a wider range of people,
Ooh,
especially
I love
people
that.
with disabilities as well, who might not be able to go outside. And then that way, then you can tie it in with like different sitting positions. So people who haven't got mobility, or you can do like a sitting version where they're just moving their
Ooh,
arms.
I
Y-
love that, yeah.
And then that ties it in with the younger generation and the older generation. Because let's face it, even when we get old, we still need to be able to look after ourselves. So it's up to you if you want to go down.
I
But
love that. That's great, yeah.
yeah, but when we was talking, that's the direction. And your videos are very well thought out. So everyone go and check them out. Like I said, I watched them all and I did learn a lot. And obviously talking to you today, I've learned a lot. So it's been absolutely wonderful. So the last thing before I let you go is, have you got a quote or a favorite quote that you live by, or that you'd use to inspire people?
Yes. I would use the quote, "You are not your mind" by Eckhart Tolle. I don't know if you've ever heard of Eckhart Tolle. I love him.
I
His books are
haven't,
amazing.
but that's
Yeah, The
interesting.
Power of Now is, like, an amazing book.
Oh, I've read The Power of Now. Is that who
Oh,
writes it?
yeah.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah, so
wow.
yeah, it's so good. It's like that book changed my life, but that quote is so simple but so profound because you realize that you are not your mind, you're not the thinker, you're not the stream of thoughts that is continually going through your mind, you're the watcher. And you're the mountain watching the clouds go by. You're sitting on the riverbank like watching the stream of thoughts go by. You don't have to give and feed these thoughts, that are coming by. You don't have to believe everything you think. And also, like, it goes hand in hand with your feelings are just visitors, and it just reminds you who you are. Like, you have the power. And um you know I would suggest reading that book for anyone listening because it changed my entire perspective on life.
Yeah.
But that would be my quote. Yeah.
That's brilliant. So that's a book I've read. I didn't actually know that was the name of the author. I just know the name of the book. And I was at a Mind Body Spirit show the other day, and I was in the section of the books, and I was like, oh, I've read that book, amazing book, amazing book, amazing book. And there's so many different books. And that message is so important, what you said, that you aren't your mind. And we get so caught up sometimes that you hear the nasty voice in your head and you start to believe what they're saying. And this is why it's important to swap. Every time you catch yourself being negative to yourself, calling yourself ugly, stupid, not intelligent, you need to add the positives. I am worthy. I am beautiful. I am amazing. I'm intelligent. Because you control your mind, you control your life. And that's something I live by. Because as soon as you learn, right, thoughts are like clouds, your mind is the sky, thoughts are like clouds. And as a thought comes in, you just got to let it drift. If you hold on it for it too long, that's when the thunderstorm's going to come, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I
And
love that. That's good. Yeah.
if you like books like that about like the mind, and obviously meditation is a big thing for you, is a
Mm.
book called A Monk's Guide to Happiness. I can't remember who it's by,
Ooh.
but in this
Um,
book, it basically teaches you methods on how you can meditate, be present, and stuff without actually meditating. So you
mm,
mentioned quite a lot that obviously when you're anxious and you're not in the right headspace for meditation, because they put so much emphasis on you need to find a quiet space, you need to do this kind of stuff. Whereas this book, it teaches you that you don't need that quiet space. You can do it with a busy mind, and it teaches you to do it while shopping, while driving. So it'll tie in nicely with the shamanic stuff that you do, that you do in person, brushing your teeth and all this, because you don't have to make set time for it. So that's a monk's guide to happiness. I recommend it to
I'm
everyone.
writing that down. That sounds
Yeah,
great.
honestly, it's when I read it, it literally changed my whole perspective of meditation, because I was under the
Oh,
impression, and it's nice that you touched upon it about the ums. So different vibrations activate a different frequency, and they'll cause a different emotion. This is why they tend to have different chants and mantras even, sorry, when they're doing the meditation. So it's either like and it's not the it's the note that is making, and the vibration that is the important bit. So I was under the impression you had to sit in the lotus position with your legs crossed, hands facing upwards, in and in, and it just didn't resonate with me when I had to do that type of meditation. So
mm.
since reading this book, Monk's Guide to Happiness, I am so much more peaceful and so much more in control of my mind, because any little moment, even if I'm just doing it for 30 seconds, whereas 30 seconds don't seem like a long time, but that 30 seconds is enough to bring me back to awareness of my body. And that ties in nicely with everything
Oh,
that you've said with the somatics.
that's so awesome. I'm definitely gonna read that. That's super cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
No problem at all. It's brilliant. I've read lots of books, so like a lot of the stuff that you was talking about, I've found it. Another good one is Becoming Supernatural. I can't again, that's another one
Oh
I
my
can't
gosh.
remember.
Joe Dispenza, right? Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
that's it.
Yeah, that is like I have that book. I don't know why. I need to like sit down and actually read it. But yeah, I've heard it's
It's
amazing.
crazy. It is. And like some of the theories and stuff, if you haven't got the right head to read through it in little sections at a time, because a lot of the stuff, it'll contradict your beliefs of what you're already believing, but it'll make you understand and look at the world completely different. And again, it's another book I highly recommend for what you're going into, because it's all about energy, it's all about the frequency, it's all about the vibration you're sending out, and the power of thoughts, and all this kind of stuff.
I
There's
love that.
so many books I could recommend to you, because mental discipline is also another thing that's going to tie in nicely with what you do. Because again, like your quote said, you are not your mind. So if you have more mental discipline, you'll have that longevity where you don't mind suffering now to reap the rewards later. You don't crave the reward, the instant gratification,
Yeah.
and you're able to train the discipline, which again allows you to be more present, because you know it's all going to pass. Whereas
Mhm.
sometimes we crave the gratitude, the instant gratification, because we don't see any other direction. We get the blinkered vision. So that was very, very lovely. And there might be an opportunity that you come back on and we can talk at a different angle, talk more direct about certain things, because I feel like we could talk for very long
Yeah,
time.
yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I love that you brought that the discipline in too, because I feel like that's something that I'm, like, having to practice with, building my business, is that delayed, like, gratification and
Yeah.
just, like yeah, so I totally resonate with that as well right now, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. So if you want a book about mental discipline, there's two books I always recommend, and that's David Goggins. I
Okay.
think it's not done yet. It's either David
I've heard
Goggins.
them before. I don't know if
Da-
I know them.
yeah, so David Goggins, he got two books out, and both of them talk about mental discipline. And then the other one is Ant Middleton, mental fitness. Oh,
Okay.
actually, three books, and The Mountain Is You as well.
Oh, I've heard that one so good. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Your Mountain Is You. That, oh, actually, we're just gonna spiral them all off now.
I know, I could
Um,
go into there's so many. I've read so many of
and the
yeah.
other one, The Power of Habit.
Ooh, I've heard okay, I've heard of that one, but I haven't read it yet.
That
Okay,
one I
cool.
read every year at the start of the year, just to
Oh,
reinforce everything that I learned about habit, about discipline. And this is how I understand how to create a new habit. Obviously, being an ex addict to alcohol, gambling, those addictions are still there because the habit is still there. So this is where understanding what makes a habit, why do we stick a habit, this is where it's really important. So they're the books I'd recommend to help you train your mental
I
discipline
love that. Thank
and
you. I'm definitely
mindset.
yeah, thanks. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No
talk over you. Yeah,
problem
thank
at all. So it's been absolutely wonderful having you here. We've learned lots. I'm sure that the people listening and everything have learned a lot as well. I'm very grateful for your time, and yeah, it's been absolutely amazing. So thank you everyone so much for listening, for watching this episode of the Spiritual Crash. We've covered a lot with Mackenzie, and make sure that you go and follow all her socials. She's on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, all under the same name of My Grove Mind. No, My Mind Grove. Sorry, I was
you.
got it slightly backwards. And links will be down below. But thank you very much. I'm proud of you. I believe in you. Let's go and smash it. See you all soon. Bye bye.
Bye.
There we go. Record.